Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. And I was just thinking of auctions. I happen to watch 3D machines occasionally, and Dalton is back from his latest vacation. And what he did is he bought a side-by-side at an auction. I think it's a Yamaha. I want to call it a Razor, but I think Polarises are known as Razors. So anyhow, he bought this side-by-side, and it, like so many other auction things, had several problems that he wasn't aware of. In his case, when he bought it, he thought it only had like 35 miles on it. Turns out it had 2,700 miles on it. He thought it had some front end damage, and it did, and he fixed the tie rod end and the front joints, but then it turned out it had a clutch problem. He managed to get around that. When he bought it, he thought it would start instantly. He actually had to futz around with it a little bit to get it to start, but luckily it did start and the engine seems okay. The auction items I've picked up. I'm the third owner of this Kawasaki Mule. It was bought at a county auction. Somebody paid $500 for it. And the hidden item for this was there was a lot more damage to it than he thought. Not only did it have the front end damage from running into a fire hydrant, which damaged the radiator, but it looked like somebody also did some extra damage to the radiator. The wiring was hacked up, and I think their big discovery, the person who bought it at the auction, was how much the parts cost. Anyway, he flipped it off to a buddy of mine, Charlie, who, once again, Kawasaki Mule, less than $500, gotta own it. So he bought it, and he very quickly discovered how much the parts cost. I paid $3 and change for this thing, and I got it to steer again. I replaced the wheel, the strut, and all that stuff. I sold the engine out of it, and transmission. It comes as one unit, and I put that Predator engine into it, a golf cart, rear axle, and a torque converter. So this thing actually rolls again. I have about $500 invested in it, so in the long run I'm going to be okay with it. But if I started off at $5 at the auction, plus the front end components and on and on and on, instead of being at $5, I'd probably be, you know, closer to $750, right? And I don't know. I'd rather have 500 into it, because I could probably sell it for that, than to have all that extra money into it. And the other thing is, I did get the engine to start, and it did seem to have the ability to go into gear, but it was making clicking and clunking sounds and all that. So I might have put a fortune into getting a radiator on it and getting it all started up, just to discover that I had a bad power plant. So once again, something hidden. This golf cart, bought it. I was the first owner from the auction. I bought this at an auction, and I bought it cheap. I only paid $50 for it. If it was earlier in the day and there were more people still at the auction, or if this would have been a photo type auction, this golf cart would have gone for a lot more than $50. Anyway, if you looked at the golf cart, it looked like it was complete but taken apart. But if you looked at it closer, you realized it was missing the clutch, the primary clutch, the front clutch of the torque converter. No big deal, you know, about $150 on eBay, and you put it together. The other thing I discovered is I put a little time in on the engine, and the engine needs to be completely rebuilt. It seems that the crankshaft bearings are no good, and it seems that as you'd move it just a little bit, it had a bit of a clunk. So I think it also has a rod knock. It did have compression, so the valves are good. The electric starter is good. I mean, there are a lot of good parts. For $50, this was a heck of a deal. For $500, it would have been a lot less so. And especially if I would have paid somebody to try to redo the components that were there. So the hidden surprise on this is it was missing parts, and the engine is really toasted. Hidden surprise on that, the cost of parts. And once again, it seemed like if I think the engine was okay, but I think it had transmission problems. Third auction item, and I actually got, I'm going to use the word tagged on this. You can use other words. It's all the way in the back of this shed. It is one of those Troy Bilt brush mowers. You know, it's got the blades that kind of go back and forth and cut brush like that. I bought it at the auction. The guy even started it, right? He gave it a quick start and shut it immediately down. I paid 75 bucks for it. Got it home, went to do some more work on it. He had the wrong belt on it. It was too tight. So as I was fooling around putting the right belt on it, I ran my fingers through the pulley, which hurt like heck. As a matter of fact, my finger still isn't quite right from all that. But that's my bad. Not too smart on old Harvey there. Anyway, I did get the drive system all straightened out, got a good carburetor on it, got it running properly. Only discovered that it had a governor problem. That means the engine has to come completely off and taken apart to figure out what the governor problem is. Not an expensive fix, but very, very time consuming. I would have liked to just, you know, smash another engine onto there, but it's one of those with the bottom pulley drives the blade, so to speak. But it's also got one of those side gears that come out of it that actually drive the wheels. Those motors are kind of hard to find. So I bought it, I own it, and until I want to completely tear it apart, unless I put a hand throttle on it, I guess I could put a hand throttle on it and have it idle, and then when I'm going through the brush, I can just squeeze the throttle, you know, some kind of brake grip, and run the throttle up, and, you know, do a better job at working my way through brush with it. But once again, something hidden. There was something wrong with the governor. And let's see, that was 1, 2, 3, and number 4. I'm the third owner of this thing. It was bought at an auction. I think somebody paid somewhere around 50 bucks for it. An auction near Schuylerville, New York. They got it home, and I think it had a starter problem. I don't know if it had a starter problem or if it was seized, because it had both problems. But you really can't tell that when you're on the auction line, because you know, you can't take the little cap off the motor and put your 14mm and spin it over. So what he saw, or she, I think it was a he though, what he saw was, for 50 bucks, I'm getting my son this nice little quad. I'll have it running in no time because I'm handy and it's all good. What he ended up finding out was, I think he found out it was seized, and while trying to mess with it, he burned up the starter on it. And went to a buddy of mine who gave him a couple of bucks, who, you know, basically it was not only seized, it sat around for a long time, and it got really ugly. And then my buddy gave it to me and just said, like, yo, take this thing. It's making my property look bad. So the big thing about auctions, it's the hidden defects. The stuff you can't see, the stuff you cannot find quickly. I'm thinking, and it's right to that end, I'm thinking I have this International here, and I'm thinking of running it through the auction. It'll probably go for halfway decent money at the auction. This was given to me by somebody who wanted to clear out some space, and I took it and saying, oh yeah, I could do something with that. And then it's like missing the input shaft. When I noticed that, I asked my neighbor, I said, yo, you don't happen to have that input shaft? He goes, oh, look. And then he got back to me and said, no, I don't have that input shaft. So you can't put power into a transmission, means you can't get power out the transmission. I'm sure I could find one if I dig on eBay and so forth and on, but I'm not going to go through that trouble. I think I'll just run it through the auction as it is. I don't know, 50, 75, 100 bucks, 150, whatever they go for. I'll just take the money and run and not have to talk to people about it missing an input shaft. By the way, it's obviously missing a motor, so that's not where the problem is. The problem is when somebody digs up a motor and says, oh, it's got the auxiliary transmission, but I don't have the input shaft for the auxiliary transmission. What do I do about that now? Well, at the minimum, you spend more money. At the maximum, you can't get the parts, and now you're kind of in a bad place. So, when you go to an auction and you see something up for sale, you really got to pay attention. Sometimes it's better if you don't win the auction. In Dalton's case with that side-by-side, if he got it for $50, I mean, heck, he stole it. If he got it for $500, heck, he stole it, because those things go for big freight. If he got it for $5,000, I don't know. They still sell for pretty big money. His isn't that old. 2,700 miles, not that many miles. Looks like he's getting it put back together again. Even for $5,000, he might not be in too bad a shape. But as you start going over 5,000, life gets interesting. Because how much money is he going to put into it? And are there any other surprises? Right? So that's where it gets weird. I'm like anybody else, you know. You do a quick search, ATV salvage, UTV salvage, you know, Honda four-wheeler salvage, Honda quad salvage, whatever, or quad salvage, or you know, and you'll get those interesting auction websites. Aren't too many here in New York. As a matter of fact, I don't think there are any in New York. There appear to be some in Pennsylvania, Texas, Colorado, California. There really don't seem to be any too close, but I guess once again I'm warning everyone there. If you're buying something, make sure you know your subject, you know about what you're buying. That's first. Second, make sure it's complete, that you know you're not missing that primary clutch that, oh, by the way, that's going to cost you a fortune. And last, always keep in mind that there could be more wrong with it than you think. When you look at that auction Kawasaki Mule out there, by the way, it's obvious that it's been well used. It's pretty battered up. That it wouldn't be a surprise if it's got a drive problem or an engine problem. When you look at the golf cart, if you actually look at it closely, you realize that it was probably used at a campground or off-road on somebody's property. By the way, you know, the mud is packed in it, and it had fishing hooks on it, you know, just kind of the way, if you go underneath it, look at some of the stops from the suspension, they're banged up or off. It wouldn't take a genius to say, hey, you know, that thing was probably off-roaded. Somebody probably drove the heck out of it, and it's not very good. In the case of the Troy Bilt, there was really nothing obvious to tell me there was something wrong with the governor. Maybe if I had, now that, you know, I have the knowledge, I'd probably go over to it and flick it and see what it feels like, see if there's any resistance on it or anything. But even with that, I don't think you could tell there's something wrong with the governor until the engine's running and it's controlling itself or not. In the case of this mini quad, it was pretty obvious that there was that it was a salvage operation. Guy paid $50 for it. you know, sometimes you win at 50 bucks, sometimes you lose. Even though at 50 bucks, if he would watch a few videos and put in a little time, he could have actually got that running for his son before it's deteriorated into the shape I have it in now. So anyway, there you go. Quick discussion about auctions, my experience with them, and everything else. Good luck for anybody who buys there. If anybody knows this great auction where, once again, you could go into it and buy quads and trucks and motorcycles and snowmobiles and everything else for, you know, $3, and turns out all they ever need is, you know, a quick hoot of starting fluid and a battery, and they fire up, and you drive them around for 10 years and then sell them and make a profit. If anybody knows an auction like that, I'm available, and probably most of my subscribers are available to go. We'll meet you there. Okay, everyone, please keep your feet down, keep your heads up, get out there and enjoy each and every day. If you enjoyed this video, please give me the old thumbs up and make a nice positive comment. If you didn't and you decide to give me a thumbs down, please tell me why. Can't improve the videos if I don't get comments telling me why you don't like them. Alright, take care now, folks. Bye.